The European Union continues its sanctions policy against Russia. In more than 10 months of a full-scale invasion, the ninth package of sanctions was agreed. This time the main blow fell on the aggressor's military-industrial complex, aviation, space technologies, Russian banks and propaganda media.
With new sanctions, the EU froze the assets of 2 more Russian banks and also banned transactions for the All-Russian Bank for Regional Development, introduced export controls and restrictions on dual-use goods and technologies, that is, those that can be used in the defense sector. To this end, another 168 Russian companies of the military-industrial complex have been included in the sanctions list. The EU has also introduced a ban on investments in the energy and mining sectors. From now on, EU citizens are prohibited from holding any positions in the governing bodies of all organizations acting on behalf of Russia or on its territory. A ban has also been introduced on the provision of advertising, market research and public opinion polling services for the Russian Federation. In addition, the EU suspended the broadcasting licenses of 4 more Russian TV channels.
It is becoming increasingly difficult for Russia to produce weapons to continue the war against Ukraine. According to experts, it is possible to circumvent the sanctions policy. An example of this is Iran. Tehran supplies Russia with drones that attack peaceful Ukrainian cities, but looking for components for modern weapons on the black market is long and difficult.
Technical sanctions are very painful for the Russian military-industrial complex, and a number of weapons cannot be produced without components, including those from the European Union. And it is impossible to quickly find a replacement for them on the world market. So the technical part is very important to disable their military-industrial complex, especially when it comes to development of drones and so on, of such a fairly strict and severe punishment. This is the supply of components for aircraft engines.
Discussions about the content of the ninth package of sanctions continued for several weeks. In addition to economic ones, the EU Council expanded the list of personal sanctions to include new individuals and legal entities. The Hungarian government has traditionally opposed the restrictions. The country managed to achieve non-inclusion in the sanctions list of 3 Russian ministers.
We must promote, or let's say use our partners in the European Union in order to criticize Hungary. To introduce economic sanctions against it is the second. And here the main third point is to promote, lobby for the maximum number of countries that are members of the European Union to define Russia as a sponsor of terrorism at their legislative level. And thus Hungary will automatically fall under the country that supports the aggressor. And this is the different policy towards the whole country and government.
The subject of discussions was also the partial removal of restrictions on the economic activities of 6 Russian owners of companies related to the production of agricultural products and fertilizers. The EU says everything for the sake of food security. According to experts, the complex of sanctions imposed against Russia by civilized Western countries is a big problem for the aggressor's economy.
If we talk about the state of the Russian economy as a whole, then it is, as it were, divided into 2 parts, the energy and the rest. And for a long time, almost the entire 2022, the energy part subsidized the rest of economy due to high oil prices. And thus the Russian industry lived. They had rather low unemployment. They managed to achieve a sane inflation rate. But in connection with the latest G7 sanctions, in connection with the sailing of oil prices, and in connection with the fall in prices for Russian-made oil, the possibilities of subsidizing the energy sector have been exhausted.
Experts note that the EU sanctions potential has not yet been exhausted, and if the Russian Federation does not stop the aggression against Ukraine, the next 10th package of sanctions is only a matter of time. Reported by Serhiy Kulias, Larissa Zubenko, UATV News.